Hi, Nyajong. For my season 1 finale, I am so thrilled to bring to the world of podcasting and the Hmong community this amazing story from Zoua Vang. Parent advocacy happens naturally, but as we know, cultural stigma and awareness can prevent opportunities to advocate when your child is diagnosed with a developmental disability. Join me as I learn from one of the fiercest Hmong mother advocates I've had a great honor to connect with, as she eloquently in Hmong describes how we as a Hmong community can move forward with compassion in treating individuals with a disability with dignity and kindness. Hello, and welcome to the Let's Talk About Autism in Hmonglish podcast. To be honest, today I'm a little nervous because I'm interviewing probably one of the best interviewers I've ever met or known of. She is an amazing mom and parent advocate that we've had the pleasure of meeting in one of our groups. And when she first came to our one of our first parent support meetings, I remember, Joa, I remember you, not everyone had their cameras on, but you did, and you looked very, um, I could tell you were kind of like, I don't know what this group is all about, but I definitely want to find out. I think that was a lot of parents, but you definitely shared your story, and I was just blown away by it. And I thought, wow, like, cứ nhục hơn nó cho parents ôm bầu lên nó đâu lời từ mình nhỏ, like bán từ mình nhỏ, in my white counterparts, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
being in the field, there are parents who you go, okay, they really they went that extra mile for their child, and you're a little nervous because you're like, wow, they can pretty much they know how to work the system, which is great, right? And you go, how does one in the midst of parenting a child with a disability, with all the time and energy that comes with that, are they able to garner even more time and energy to be that parent advocate that it just wows everybody and changes how the system works. So itong mom parent that is like itong mom parent that's like that. You're such a role model to me. So everyone, I'd like to welcome to the podcast Zoua Vang. Thank you for joining me today.
Oh, Thea, thank you so much for inviting me. It's such a pleasure to meet with you and to learn from you. And it's really been an honor just to get to know you, right? And to know that we have a Hmong sister who works in the field of ABA who is so wonderful because we thought we were alone in this world of ABA 10 plus years ago when we first
Mm-hmm.
entered it. And so it's been really nice for us. We were just surviving. And
Yeah.
now to know that there's many amazing families who are doing the same, it's refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, gosh, I hate to say it, you guys are kind of like pioneers in that parent advocacy realm, right? And that's why I invited you to come talk today about and share your story. And oh gosh, you know what? I was going to ask you if you're okay with it. I'd love to share your YouTube link that you've shared with our group before. If I can link that. Um,
Absolutely,
okay.
absolutely. I have to warn though, that was done a while ago. So
Yes,
Alyssa's much bigger now,
I
and
know.
it's time for a new video, and I
Yes.
gotta get going on that. But absolutely, please do.
Okay. I think that I'd love for not just our Hmong parents, but every parent to watch that video and just be able to understand, like, you know, you the minyo bori jata shi to you jonu mu do lo na, you hope that they understand and see and feel that love, and your video captures that so well. But let me start at the beginning. Tell me
Yeah.
about Katamintai, right? We were just talking about her. Oh my gosh, she's a teenager. And
Yeah.
yeah, so tell me about Alyssa, her interests, and then also can you share about her diagnosis? So, we the podcast is Let's Talk About Autism in Hmonglish, but you came to our group because you were interested in just seeking more information about the ABA component, or just that parent support component, right? Or just support of any kind. And so that's kind of where that fits in with the ABA, because you guys have had experience with that. And then if you could share more about her age of diagnosis and just current school placement, what she's doing. I'm just so interested to hear, because I know it's been a while since you and I caught up.
Yeah, no. So Alyssa is 14 years old,
Wow.
and she is our second of three children.
Okay.
Our oldest is 16, Alyssa's 14, and the baby is 10. And it's been quite a learning curve, like so I think I chuyện chẳng được sẽ đọc báo sana ya. Thầu yêu bây giờ nên mà thầu của lo lo nè. So của nhà là chị thả sai để ít thứ năng ni giờ li gia là ít gì mà I didn't grow up with disability, right?
Right.
I had one cousin, and I think maybe I saw her a handful of times, but my parents didn't quite know what to do. Hỏi bên hoàng kỳ gia vậy thì có ít thứ năng sợ mà ít sự của nhà khai tế mà của nhà tiền thân chiên á,
Mm-hmm.
thân
Yeah.
chiên đâu thì ít trả cả đâu, right?
Yeah.
Which is literally translating saying if the person looks disabled or different, don't stare too long because you will be cursed with what they have. And so when you really think about that, and that was my upbringing, because my mother taught me what her mother taught her,
Yep.
what they've known for generations, thì ít thằng thôi ít thằng là hay tiệt bởi thằng sợ ít thằng sống khá thân chiên đâu thì yêu đâu thì những trái mồ lên nó là gì yêu bởi thằng là chim đó là shit thà yêu thích chỉ
Yeah.
sai là you thích chỉ sai là thì shit lỡ mà kiến chơi lý cha lỡ bà đó yêu shit thà lỡ mà chỉ lý cha. So this is the way I grew up until I had Alyssa, right? And thầu của tôi mình nó cũng yêu tao nhiều loại chuyện của nè tiệt. Thầu nếu mà trâu lý sư ni chỉ tì ni chỉ chân trắng ni chỉ
Mm-hmm.
qua xóa hài lô. So with all these delays of not being able to turn, not babbling, I kept looking. I said, this is not right, because của tôi mà tụ lo, and I knew that
Mm-hmm.
there were certain milestones that he hit.
Yes.
Mua ở bên lý sư mà nữ tư这还里面有了女tư这đó một đó là cái tụi nó nữ chịu lên đó mà mua đã chỉ sư so của mình
Mm-hmm.
thế này mà hạt địa ok nếu bác quân thiệt sĩ vì lý do tụi nó nữ họ chịu chỉ tao đi tụi lo nè ha.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that của nhà nếu lúc của chap là đã chỉ nên trai nên xem này nè địa xong mình thiệt là ấy là để chúng ta chỉ chịu không mình không ai chỉ ít chặt tao phải và của ít của bao địa disability thế họ想看到只一块的英文能会睇到，你要让你用
Right.
领带来，我哋边可以做係啊，用你錄啲嘢又係啲啊，嗰啲白嘅你就冇啦，個全部啲一係弄落火落巴，人哋仲要係入片子，所以個落巴印度呢，人哋都用咗啦，right? So
Yes.
early intervention, why not step in and do something to help when we can? And so that was why we fought. So we fought for over a year, and then to like maybe a dozen doctors and specialists. And like Nema, you're just stuck with Leo the late bloomer here. Nét thì mình biết chuyện ta là chỉ mới đã chỉ tỷ nên chân đau thông là xứ nào nè.
Professionals said that, or Hmong?
Yes, yes,
Okay,
doctors. So we
doctors.
saw like doctors or child development
Yes.
specialists. So at 7 months, she was already in speech and physical therapy,
Right.
even though
Yes.
there was no official diagnosis, just that
Mm-hmm.
there were delays.
Okay.
So then we kept pushing. And when they said that, we said, okay, well, then we're just going to have to go elsewhere, because doctors in Fresno just probably don't know. We'll go to LA or San Francisco and try to get a diagnosis. And that's when they said, well, there's one test. Well, insurance will cover. That should be my joy. You better both for sure with that. With my day job is an advocate. And
Mm-hmm.
so don't worry about the insurance. Let me handle that. And so they ran the test, and they called us and they said, oh, now we know. Nếu thì mình nhớ nó mà bé bao giờ ta nếu phải hành bộ lên là bé in general she sống qua ni sống khác, she did not look disabled, but je ne peux pas venir she has something rare called Angelman syndrome. And 1 in 15,000 births will result in Angelman syndrome. But a lot of times, they'll just dismiss it as autism or cerebral palsy or just
Mhm.
delays because it's difficult to get that diagnosis because you have to really, really look at the blood work.
Okay.
And so, and so Angelman was really scary. You know, they said she would never talk, she may not walk, she would have seizures and learning disabilities. And so, pretty much good luck. And, that's what you got. So my husband and I, we came home and we said, well, what can we do? And he quit his job and he was a newspaper photographer and went back to school. He became a pediatric RN, now works with kids with disabilities at
Wow,
Gillette
yeah.
Hospital. Yeah. And so I left my job, and that was almost 10 years ago.
Mhm.
I left my day job to come home and be her full-time advocate. So, as we talk about Alyssa, she is so amazing. So I first want to preface and say that it isn't that we've done anything to her. It's that she is who she is, right? She's
Yes, yes.
funky and she's crazy and 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 she's fierce, and
Yeah.
she, anything that her brothers get, she wants.
Mhm.
So we have just been supporting her so that she can reach her potential, right?
Yeah.
She's really led the way, and her dad and I and her brothers, we're just trying to keep up with her. And so, Alyssa is now 14. She loves her cousins, loves BTS. Harry Styles, she speaks with a communication device.
Yes.
She started walking at 2.5. And she tells us, like, she'll tell Google to play BTS for her, or so she doesn't talk through her mouth, but we have fought and fought and fought and challenged people to believe in her, to believe that she can learn.
Mhm.
And I don't want to say that, oh, she doesn't have any needs, because that would not be true. She has a lot of supports and such special training that people need to encourage and to inspire her to give her best, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I think she has led the way, and so she's a typical 14-year-old. Loves going to the movies. She especially loves live plays, and she bosses
Oh.
everyone around. So so that's where Alyssa is now, but it
Yeah.
hasn't been easy getting here.
Mhm.
And I know that it's not going to be easy moving forward. It never has been. And truthfully, it's never been for any of our children, right? Like, even
Right.
our typically developing ones, Jonathan and Matthew, Alyssa's brothers, they need support and encouragement
Mhm.
too. And so I think sometimes, yes, Alyssa needs different types of supports, but I'm very mixed when people say she has special needs, because
Mhm.
let's never forget, as parents, that Alyssa's needs are not special, right? She wants love, she wants unconditional support, and she wants friends, and she wants to reach her potential. Everything I said about Alyssa, her brothers want to.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think what's different about Alyssa is that she requires and wants to have different types of supports that her brothers don't need. And I think that, even the same thing.
Mhm.
We are having such a difficult time. I'm still learning to wrap my mind around disability and this world that I was brought up in, and the world that I'm seeing change in front of my eyes. I used to think that it's but in day, right? The support that she needs is different, but she's not that different. It's just like
Yeah.
she's just a human. It's just like right? It's
Mhm.
just that different type of support. It doesn't mean they're less smart or that they're less human. And I think that's something that we really need to grapple with as a community as we move forward, because we need to allow ourselves to be students too, right? And kind of
Yes.
assume we know everything. And to me, that's been the most humbling thing, is that my daughter has been my front row seat to really be able to learn with community and myself.
Yeah, absolutely, Joa. That is a great message. Um, I just wanted to kind of go back to what you shared about your mom. So now
Mhm.
she's been kind of an active participant in Alyssa's journey for the last 14 years. Do you feel like her mindset or framework or perspective has changed when it comes to disability? Now that she's seen, yeah,
Absolutely.
how you've advocated.
Absolutely. I think that there's things that are in theory, right? Có yêu xã tao xí mà全部你可以搏嘅，
Mhm.
可以xã到nhau đây đây xí chỉ tôi hay lý trả là dùng chân ta, đó là bỏ cái này nhiều lúc không mà yêu ta. Wow, lên trên này chỉ hay lo, đó là nếu lúc chỉ trong bộ lý trả,你贴了chủ到lúc computer nó 5, 6 layers deep, and nếu
Mhm.
lúc just through memory, thế là hại
Yeah.
tao. Họ nói yêu chỉ bỏ đó là yêu chỉ bỏ, tôi sáng đầu lên chơi của tụi mình nhỏ lại tiền. Oh my gosh, she doesn't even talk, right? And
Mhm.
that's the perception.
Right.
But once they get to know her, they go, oh my gosh, she works so hard in order to talk, right?
Right.
And so,
Yes.
and she's just talking, and some people are very impressed. Why are they impressed? They're impressed because they thought she could never do it, right?
Mhm.
And I think it's important that it's not bad, and I don't think it's a judgment. I think we all need to grow and learn, and
Absolutely.
I'm growing and learning. And so absolutely, Gunya, she has seen these things. She is Alyssa's biggest advocate, right?
Yeah.
Um, but it's because she's been lucky enough to have Alyssa in her life and to really be willing to learn and to grow with Alyssa. Because whether or not we come along, Alyssa's going to leave us behind. So we're just trying to
Yes.
do our best to keep up with our little girl, right?
Yes. Yeah, and that I love to hear that, and I don't know how much your mom shares her story with, "Bacon yellow, well, upon you," right? I don't know if she's like,
Yeah,
"Oh, and I hope that she is because I'd love for that generation to understand and have that empathy, right? That compassion for
yeah,
that because cái hay nói như là chỉ tập bỏ đâu là chỉ bảo thiên ạ, right? So là
yeah,
nó cái này là con nhau là tới giờ là yung chân hay that oh, chỉ trong chai, right? It's you call
yeah,
it
yeah,
hay khai đó bây giờ mình nói thế, cái hay chỉ trong chai ít chai you tao, right? Like we need to
yeah,
like do away with that, right? And then your mom really got to see like, oh gosh, that is very outdated. We should not repeat that because it's not true, and it's
yeah,
hard. It could be
yeah.
harmful, y'all. And I wonder how many of even ich generation our peers that
Hmm.
maybe still believe that because that's all they heard too. That's all they knew too,
Right,
right? Because in their
right.
circle, in their world, maybe there were no individuals with disabilities. So that framework kind of worked for them. It made sense.
Right,
And then it really does open your eyes once it hits your family, right? Or someone you care about and you're going, oh, no, 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 that's not a fair lens to look at the world through. So
right.
that's
And
very
and
interesting.
and how sad, right? For someone growing up who doesn't have the ability to grow up with someone with a disability, right? Because then
Hmm.
your world is automatically smaller. And
Yes,
then if we see someone with a disability and we are so uncomfortable, we need to look away, we need to leave them alone because we don't want them to think we're bothering them. Think about their world. I think that the saddest thing is the isolation. It's not the disability for my
yes,
daughter. She's extremely social and she loves people, right? And I think that if people were to treat her like that and to act like she isn't there and to not see her because they don't want to offend her, that would hurt her more than her disability because what she
absolutely.
craves for is human connection and love.
Right.
And so now that we know better, I hope we can all try to do better, right? And there's still
Absolutely.
so much more to learn.
Yes. Yes. And again, back to that amazing video that I'm going to share. Every time, when you gosh, we did a live in with a year ago, right?
Yeah,
And
uh-huh.
I tell you, everybody who watched that video, they would message me like, "Oh my gosh, Tia, I didn't think I would cry, but I'm sitting here crying." I'm like, "Yeah, I've been crying for days," And so like that
Oh,
video, it just really tugs on my heart, and you said too that she's not that little girl anymore. So do you feel like you have to
she's
like create a
not.
new one, an updated video maybe, as she's
I do.
into this next transition, into this next chapter of her life as a teenager, and oh my gosh, soon adulthood, school's gonna be ending in just a handful of years. I mean, I'd love to know where you're at with that.
Yeah, no, I that's definitely something that I've rewritten a script for, but I just
Okay,
need to
yeah.
other things in life keep taking precedent over that. But the
Yes.
reason why I did that and why
Mhm.
I still think that that is so important is because when your child has a diagnosis, a label, right? People look at that and they make all these assumptions about what they can and can't do. And they already put your child in a box. And I think that can be useful, right? Sometimes for academia and medical field because they need to quickly make decisions about your child. But I sometimes think that that can also be very harmful because sometimes it limits your child and it they see your child as a diagnosis and not as a human being and all of their potential. And so for me, as Alyssa's mother, I feel like it is my job to make sure that people see her as this complex, amazing, spunky, smart little girl that she is. And I don't think that if you go and look at any formal doctor's write up or any medical evaluation, they're going to focus on these things. But I think as her mother, it's my job to tell people these things. And I think that as somebody who is lived a whole life working in communications, it's our jobs to communicate. And I think communicate the good things, but also the things where you need supports, right?
Yes.
So I think you have to also be real in this stuff, and I hope that that's what people get out of the video is how to best support Alyssa, how to best work with her. Um, but to also let them know that we are all in this together, that we are truly a team. And this is my story about Alyssa. And this is how much she means to me. And these are her superpowers and her gifts. Because a lot of times, it takes people a while to think about our children or our loved one in that lens to kind of see what is their superpower and how can I
Mhm.
inspire and bring that out and not just require, right? Because any one of us, if we're just going to lay demands on somebody, even my boys, they're not going to respond to it as well as if they're inspired. So if I can help this therapist, if I can help this new teacher figure out what makes Alyssa tick and help them figure out how to inspire her to work harder, it's going to work for me and work for the new person coming into our life so much faster than letting them flounder for 3 to 6 months into the
Right.
school year before they can see that my child has these amazing superpowers, right?
Mhm.
So I think that that's what the video does for me, is that it is important for us to proactively communicate and challenge people to see our children as the complex human beings that they are and not just a diagnosis.
Absolutely. And like you said, sometimes, when individual comes in, you're like, oh, they have Angelman's, here's da da da, da, right? And they just assume that's all
Hmm.
there. There's so many assumptions, right? But then
Yeah,
also you have the parents who come in and are just like, oh, you're the professionals, you know what to do. Here she is. And it's like, no, like we, as the professionals, we want to know more, right? We want to
right.
understand at the core of this individual, who are they? Who are to their family, right? Because we're not treating just the individual, we're treating the whole family. You know what I mean? So it's such a beautiful way to say, hey, you know what? Step into our world. And it's not just because we see you for X hours per day. Like we're
Right.
immersing ourselves into your world, and this is not just Alyssa, the client. This is Alyssa, the daughter of, the sister of,
Yeah.
and this
Yeah.
individual. So it's so amazing. I think that, not everybody has the time to put this amazing video together, but highly recommend it. I mean, I have had parents in the past, and it at the time as even a line staff, it was helpful to kind of see like, oh, okay, this is where they're at, and understanding where their family's coming from, where they're at in their journey, and how I can be a small part of that. But, like you said, having that little bit of inspiration to go, okay, how do I fit in and how do I help them while they're on their journey, right? Because we're a very small presence in your life, but, we appreciate that opportunity to do so, but it definitely is helpful. And I just loved it so much. I really want to share just the idea of your video. I mean, I don't know that a lot of parents that you would consider that as something that they would put together to show every single person that comes into their home to serve their child, right? Or even school. So it's a great idea. I love
Well,
it.
that's a simple way, but like again, let's be honest. Like I can make that home video, and I really literally did. I shot it with my
Mm-hmm.
phone. I edited it with
Yeah.
iMovie. But but I was also a former news reporter, right?
Yes.
I have those skills, and not everybody can have it. So it's owning and recognizing my privilege. But that doesn't stop a mother from having the confidence to say these lines when she steps into a meeting, right? About her child. Because I have been in so many meetings where even if you don't have a video, it's your job to represent your child and to tell their story and tell their story well. Because you know what? At the end of the day, and I've had some people give pushbacks when I advocate for Alyssa, and they go, well, what do you propose we do in this educational environment or in this setting? Like, if you think you know it all. And I have to be very clear, and I have to say, you know what? I have a PhD in Alyssa. Like, I
Yes.
am the expert on my child. Here's what I know. But my job is not to do the speech stuff. That's your job. Like, I can tell you this won't work, but I don't tell you what will. That's your job, right? And
Right.
so let's work together and find a path forward that would work for Alyssa. And so I think it's very clear because sometimes when you come off and you talk so confidently about your child, that's the flip side is that people step back and want you to do it all. And so I think it's
Mm.
really important to know your
Mm-hmm.
role and
Yes.
why you're at the table. You are at the table as a parent because you have a PhD. You may not have a PhD in a lot of things, like I don't, but I have three. I have them in my three children, right?
Yes.
I know by the way they look, I know by the sounds they make, how they're feeling, what it is they're going through. And so that is my job to do that and to advocate for their needs and wants. And right now, John can vocalize and tell, speak up for himself. So I'm stepping away from that role as he learns to take on that voice. Same with Alyssa. She's doing the same exact thing. We get into rooms like this in the mornings when I put on her van to go to school. There are times when I'm like, oh, Alyssa, and I'm trying to talk to the van driver who we love because we've formulated this amazing relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She will advocate for herself. And she's like, Mom, I don't need you to talk on my behalf anymore. She will get in the van and she'll start waving to me, telling me, it's independent time, Mom. I need you out of here,
See
right?
ya.
And so and so it's reading her cues and going, okay, she
Yeah.
doesn't need me as much anymore. She's got these relationships. She loves these people. She needs me to be out of it so that she can formulate her own relationships. And so I think it's all of that, right? And not being afraid to do it until they don't need you anymore. So we're noticing with Alyssa that amazing shift. When she was smaller, it was constant battling for services. It was
Mm-hmm.
like, let's give her more physical therapy so that she can start walking, even though we don't know if, based on her diagnosis, if you guys believe that she can ever even walk. She may not talk. And based on her diagnosis, you're saying she won't. But I believe that she's smart enough. And how will we know if we haven't tried? And we're going to shake every tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think when she was smaller, it was a lot of that. It was, yes, she doesn't have a medical diagnosis of autism, but she does have an academic diagnosis of autism. And so it was this back and forth about should she get ABA services? And
Right.
we believe that she did. And she benefited from that for many, many years where we had someone in the house, 20 to 30 hours a week on top of her 20 hours of school. And when she was in elementary school, so this poor little girl
Yeah.
was working 50, 60 hours a week with people living with us for years.
Mm-hmm.
And she still continues to work hard. So I, I can't even say that I've done anything because Alyssa's done all the heavy lifting. She's
Right.
put in the hours. She's put in the work. And so when she was smaller, it was a lot of that. Now, we still have those pieces that we're trying to keep up, but it's about inclusion. It's about letting her light shine so people can get to know her and not her mother. Um, Making sure that she gets into, general ed classes and has an opportunity and is
Mm-hmm.
supported in a way that she can shine so people get to know Alyssa and not us. She's actually downstairs. She's been home all week sick. And
Oh no.
she she had the cold. And
Uh-huh.
so early on in her academic career, we were fighting for inclusion. And it was
Yes.
just, so many minutes of her being able to be in the same room, breathe the same air as the other students.
Mhm.
Now, right now, we've got such a wonderful situation at her middle school where she's been out and we've been getting texts from teachers and students,
Oh,
people saying,
wow.
"Hey,
Hey.
how's Alyssa doing? We're
Yeah.
wondering about her. When is she coming back?" And to
Mhm.
me, that is full inclusion.
Yeah.
Inclusion is when her gifts are missed. People
Mhm.
recognize she's not there and they want to know that she's okay. As Alyssa's mom, that is my dream for her. That when I'm not here anymore,
Mhm.
that if I'm missing, that somebody will look up and say, "Hey, Alyssa's not here. The world is not as great a place without her." And so that's what we're fighting on now, is that
Yeah.
next level of inclusion. Not just saying, "Oh, she's in the same classroom, she's in the back, and we're keeping her in the corner so she doesn't bother the other students," which is
Mhm.
how it used to be, right? And so
Yes.
it's been battling through all of that. And once I put my kid in the room, she does it herself. People fall in love with her because she's
Yeah.
just a crazy, silly little girl who is funky and has her own friends. But I need to do my job to ensure that she has the supports so that she can shine and people can get to know her. And that is an ongoing journey, right? There are good days
Yes.
and there are bad
Mm.
days, and we're in a good spot now, but any parent with a child with a disability, I mean, she's 14. She was diagnosed at
Mhm.
1, which means we've been in this world for 13 years.
Yes.
Knows that there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days, but overall, I feel like we keep moving in the right direction. So,
Yes, and I was just gonna say, you've been doing this and advocating for her. I think, like you said, all parents, you advocate for your child, but you had to advocate a little bit more loudly, harder,
yeah.
since she was 2, 3 months when you started noticing those delays. And so I'm still shocked and astounded at how you convinced them to give your 7-month-old speech therapy. Please tell me how you did that. What did you say? 'Cause I bet
Well,
there are a lot of
you
families out there who are like, I wouldn't even know where to start. How do I justify that request? Like, what do I do? What do I say?
mhm,
Like, what was going and of course, you had that background too, where
yeah,
you don't back down and you keep pushing
yeah.
forward,
Yeah.
and then doing your research and, bringing that to the table. But, like, yeah, tell me about that advocacy process for her as a 7-month-old to get
Well, Tia, I have to be honest and say, she got the early diagnosis because I have to own my privilege, right? I had
yes.
so many things going for us. Not only was I, the policy and communications director at a children's advocacy agency, so I had a lot of these things built in to have the tools to do it. Not only that, I think the only reason why I caught it so early and I was so confident in my pursuit of what is going on is because at our agency, it was First Five Fresno County at the time we were living there. Um, we really were teaching parents to be better advocates for their children
Okay.
because we had put a lot of our funding into early diagnosis because we all know the research proves that the earlier somebody gets diagnosed, the sooner the intervention, the better the outcomes.
Yes.
And so one of the things that my department was charged with doing was we paid all this money for pediatricians to have this special training on what to identify, typical delays and things like that. After all the training, the pediatricians came back and they said, "Well, it was wonderful training, but the exams are only 20 minutes or so, and we didn't have time to do the screenings." So then
Mhm.
we pulled our money back and we said, "We have to empower parents.
Yes.
We have to give them the tools." And so my department thought, well, I mean, how do we easily package and allow parents to access this information? So we started shooting videos for every month of development and telling parents what a small baby was supposed to do it every month.
Mhm.
And so then what we did is on our website, we got permission for this test, and we uploaded all these worksheets that parents, if they really wanted to, could go on and print and say, at 1 month is my child doing all these things, and run
Mhm.
this test, ASQ, and it went ages and stages questionnaire. And it would tell you, oh, you're a child, you really need to go talk to your pediatrician. Take this paper in case they blow you off and say it's not a big deal.
Mhm.
Um, but if they're doing great, then you get the scores and you're good. So I had just had Alyssa. And I had come back from maternity leave, and my staff had been working
Mhm.
on this project while I was out. I started running those when Alyssa was 4 months old. And so her brother, it goes up to age 5, was passing with flying colors. So when we did Alyssa's at age 4, like she came out in the black area, like concerning. So I thought, oh,
Mhm.
either our tool that we're going to release into the community is
Yeah.
bad, or there's something going on here. So at 5 months, it still was not good. She was not hitting the milestones. At 6 months, she wasn't. And so I just took that in and I said, we have to really look at this. And thank goodness we had a great pediatrician who was an advocate. And she said, yep, let's do it. Let's get her into, she's not babbling, not doing this. Let's
Mhm.
start speech therapy. She's not
Okay.
turning over. Let's start physical therapy. So we got lucky that we just had a good pediatrician who advocated for us.
Yes.
But it was also me as a parent being able to say, here's the definitive black and white tool,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so how many parents are going to have that,
Right.
and have that at their fingertips? And so it ended up being that it was a very effective tool. And I am probably one of the very first people who benefited from that tool
Yes.
that we created for the community. And so that's how we were able to get in and get
Mhm.
services so early on without a formal diagnosis other than just
Yeah.
delays, you know.
Right. And you have so many families who don't have that privilege, access to
Mhm.
those tools. And then also we lace that with the cultural background of that more passive approach.
Mhm. Mm, mhm.
Let's just see. Let's just wait it out. Maybe they'll grow out of it,
Or the
right?
ones that go, "Oh, tụi mình nhỏ mà, tụi mày xa sau này mà sao hay luôn,
Mm,
right?
right.
And then you get beaten down as a parent. And as a parent, nobody wants something to be wrong with their kid. Giờ là hai lần này chị yếu xem mày thế, yếu thế chị xã cái yếu
Mm-hmm.
xem mày thế giờ lại thế. Ôi yo, tôi giờ chỉ nói tôi bây giờ em mới chỉ cho nên mà sao hay lo lo, cha chân chân trai à, chị yếu xã thế. Oh, con trai lần chỉ chân trai tao thế, chị chân trai, right?
Mm-hmm.
Cái sao khả năng mà yếu, thế rồi yếu đa yếu tụ khăn sư. Tụi mình nhớ nhiều bán rõ nó tới rồi này tư cỡ lại tới giả sai rồi hay nhiều toàn đấy rồi chị mi cả là tới chân rồi trở lại để lúc lớn nọ nhiều toàn đấy rồi chị nó lúc nó ngoái chị nó không ra lại chị
Mm-hmm.
phá là phá chị tao vô lại thầu này chuyện mê mê so con hay ít khỏi you know lấy trong hai bộ lý già là thầu cái gì tụi mình nhớ nên trên trọng nhiều xứ nữa lúc không hành trên trọng nhiều nhiều cho nên nhẹ nhiều
Yeah.
cho nên chỉ để và cái nhiều phá thằng đi chạy chị tao lên đầu xứ so Hala ko sai te ku chen chen bo le ja la ku to wa to ku ti mi nhỏ na da kan ne hun chen trong ku la ja hai bo le ja la hai ja dan hai te o ku tu po tu no ti mi mo ko ai song de ma hai thơ lo lo wa chen chai le la ku ti mi nhỏ chia la tu right so
Mm-hmm.
kan ai ko everybody has to get ready and if they're not ready I understand that too because this is a really really tough world to be in and nobody wants to be here
Yes,
you know
and you said that, you've been at this for, I guess, 14 years now, right? And
Yeah,
did
yeah.
it feel lonely in the early days, early years when did you feel like you were the only family? Because I don't know, were there other families talking about disability? And it's always spoken in a, I would say, in a let's not talk about it type of tone, right? And
Mhm.
if not negative, then it's a we just don't talk about it. But I hope now that the tides have shifted and we're talking about it in a positive light, like we're looking at our children as what they are capable of. We're describing. I love hearing all the amazing things about Alyssa, but I wonder if even 14 years ago it was just so hush hush. Tell me about Angelman's, or how can I
Yeah.
be a support to you and your child? Because not knowing is part of that challenge. When you're not aware, you don't know what to say. How has that experience been for you guys?
Yeah, I think I sadly don't think that the community has come that far
Okay.
within the Hmong community and even in the general community,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
We have so far to
Yes,
go,
we do.
you know. And so no, it was really scary. And so especially told like more that, oh, your child has Angelman syndrome. It's a rare diagnosis, but when you
Mm-hmm.
think 1 in 15,000 births, the chromosomes are copying so fast that it could happen to anybody.
Yes.
They could have it, but they may never get the diagnosis, right? So that's
Mhm.
why it's rare. It's not rare because of occurrence. It's rare because people don't get the diagnosis and then, know what they're dealing with so that they can properly advocate. So I remember getting the diagnosis and typing it into the computer and
Mhm.
saying, cái này mà Angelman nó là trong mình cả.
Mhm.
Like what can my child do, right? And so it is very, very scary to be in that world and to not know anybody. I know that there was a man that I found, a family that was like filmed like in the 90s, I think. Their son had Angelman and he had gone on the Oprah Winfrey show.
Okay.
And so I looked him up
Mhm.
and I tracked him down,
Oh,
used my
wow.
reporting
Yes.
skills.
Yes.
And I just reached out to him and I said, my daughter just got diagnosed with Angelman. Your child had Angelman. I saw you on the Oprah Winfrey show
Uh-huh.
many years ago.
Yes.
Would you be willing to do a phone conversation with me? Can I just
Mhm.
ask you about your experience? So that's how desperate I was to reach out to family, right?
Yeah.
Right now, just in the last decade, the Angelman community has found wonderful ways to connect. There's an Angelman group here in Minnesota. There's little pockets all over
Mhm.
California. We connect, we support each other. But back in those days, those were still very early days. You didn't connect with people, you didn't know how. So
Right.
forget even coming to the Hmong community.
Mhm.
I couldn't even get to the Angelman community, right? So
Yes.
that's how lonely it is. And within the Hmong community, it was more difficult for people to understand. They would just go, "Oh, ini mujito geli. Oh, ini jita heloli. Oh," And so we don't even have the proper language to even talk about
Right.
disability, right? Lo lùi sự là tôi tôi thấy sĩ cảm hay lo để ni xia ông kha. Vậy có mà lo lùi nói cho là xã thì thế nào? Xia ông kha là that's such a not nice term, but I don't know that we have even found a replacement that the general community can understand,
Right.
right? That's the general community will understand. Oh, you're trying to say disability right now? I don't think that there is one yet.
Right.
That we have to brand, that we still have to define. And you, if you don't have the words to talk about something, how can you deal with something? How
Exactly.
can you properly look at it and analyze it for what it is? And so I think we have a long ways to go in our community. But I also want to be fair and say it's not just our community. The broader community too needs
Mhm.
a
True.
long ways to go, right?
Yes, yes. And I mean, if we look at the broader community, right? I mean, everything is, social media. And thanks to technology, we get to hear more stories out there. And so,
Yeah.
we talk about Angelman's being that rare disorder, but,
Mhm.
it's, you look at other advocates out there, and unfortunately, you have those celebrity advocates, right? I know
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
autism world, we have the Jenny McCarthy's of the world, the moms, and I think for the Angelmans, Colin Farrell, he's an actor. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah.
his son has Angelmans. And so I think it's
Mhm.
really great that he kind of shines that light just to kind of because more people probably would see his movies. And
Yeah.
then once they see his movies, they would hear and then get that information about Angelman. And so I think it's lovely whenever actors are willing to kind of share about their private life if it can benefit others, right? As far as
Yeah.
just informing others. So, yeah, I'm really glad to hear that there is Angelman's groups in Minnesota, and that
Yeah.
finding support there. This next
But
question.
too, I think
Yes.
even having conversations like you're having here, right?
Yes.
If I would have found something like this in our early days, like just how wonderful this would have been to know that one, là một lời chọn Hmong that are experiencing this because the
Mm-hmm.
stigma is real, you know.
Yes.
Um, and so to know that I am not alone is such a big thing. And I think in those early days, I really can't say I can name you one other Hmong person who is vocal and out there and not ashamed to say, hey, my child has a disability and I need all hands on deck because
Mm-hmm.
we're going to figure this out. When you get thrown into this world, you don't know which way is up. You don't know which way
Right.
is down. It is such a confusing world. And that's for somebody who speaks this language and who understands in and outs of how
Mm-hmm.
most systems work.
Right.
I can't name one other Hmong mother who at that time I could call up and say, "Oh my God, tôi nên giờ là hay nói với lý chào, chả là hay lúc thế lý nó thằng đó của tí mình nhỏ."
Mhm.
I didn't know anybody. And so
Mhm.
the fact that you're cultivating this community, however I can support, those were very lonely, sad days. And so that's why every time when you reach out, you're like, "Hey, so what do you want?" I'm like, "Okay, yeah, let's find a time to work because this would have been so wonderful. This is still wonderful, right?"
Yeah. Yes.
So thank you for doing this.
Oh no, I shared with someone recently, I think as a professional, I do this, right? This is my job. I clock in, I clock out, but then
Yeah,
finally at a place in my career where I can go, okay, what's next? What can I do? What more can I do? Right? I've
yeah,
been serving the autism community for almost 2 decades now. I want to bring this back to my Hmong people, right? And then, just as the world would have it, I go discover that autism. I'm going, oh my goodness, like you
mhm,
decide that when it's your job, you go, oh, it's my job, right? I have clients at work, but
right,
then when it like is your family, you go, okay, how do I use the tools that I have to support them? And of course,
right,
because it's so stigmatic, you don't want to go and then be like, let me tell you all the things that I would tell you to do if you were my client. It's
right,
hard. So
right,
I try to approach it with, here's all the information I can share. And when you're
right.
ready, let's talk. And so I would be remiss if I were to just continue to clock in and clock out, year after
Mhm,
year and be
mhm,
like, and they'll just figure it out. And I thought I have to do something. And I'm feel fortunate to be at a point in my career where I am have the tools and the resource
yeah,
and the
yeah,
network
yeah,
to
yeah,
put this together and recognizing that need and kind of maybe encouraging families and kind of letting this fire and saying, hey, you guys, let's rally together, right? You guys have been battling your own personal isolated journeys. Let's come together, right? And recognizing that together we can learn from each other and also uplift each
yeah.
other, and it
Well,
doesn't
and
have to
and
be.
you yeah, and you think about the fact that ก็ส่วนใหญ่บริจาค how hard did you have to work to get to where you are now? And no other parent should have to go through what you went through
Yes.
because they may not have the tools that you do. You know, every time I manage to get something for Alyssa, it's always with the caveat. Well, that's fine that you're going to apologize now and do what's right for Alyssa. But what happens to the child standing behind her? What
Hmm.
happens to the mom who's working two jobs who doesn't speak English? I want her child to have that too, right?
Hmm.
What you're giving my child is not unique, is not above the law, it's within the law. So, how do we keep that door open once we opened it for other families? And I think that's really important, just to shift from us once we survive to shifting the system so that it can
Yes.
truly better serve everybody. And I think that that's what you're talking about. Taking your privilege and your skills and your years of expertise and trying to have an impact that goes beyond you and your circle. And I think for me that's really important too. There's a great sense of survivor's guilt, right? About I made it out to this point, but there's still a long ways to go. But as I go, how do all tides lift? Generally, generally, bây giờ đây hết sự của nhau luôn gọi hết tiệt của luôn gọi xia cho là của xã cả đây lần đầu sẽ được xia dạo cái bị sẽ được cỡ cái xia ba nè chỉ hết tiệt của lần đầu xin à because
Hmm.
there's a lot of guilt and there should be a lot of guilt right
Yes. Yes.
because so much in life is about luck. I used to think it used to be hard work, and now I know it's luck. Luck plays a big part of it. But I would hope that as humans, we don't wait for luck to make life better, that we make life better for each other, right?
Yes.
Especially if we're lucky. So,
Absolutely. And that it's thank you, Joe. Great segue to my next question. I was going to say, I know the answer. When did you decide that you were going to make Alyssa your life's work? It was when, of course, when she was born, but when you started
yeah,
recognizing it 2, 3 months. And now the challenge is, I think the framework used to be, well, how do we change Alyssa to fit into the world? No, 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 no. It's how we're going to change the world to fit Alyssa, right? And so
Yeah.
part of that struggle, that challenge, what were some things you just mentioned? There were things that you would ask for, and the pushback would be, why does your child get it and not this other
Yeah.
one? So, like, how many years of that did you hear before you finally mustered up the, the just to say, well, I'm her mom. If not me, who else? Who's going to advocate for her? And then, kind of having to kind of have that tunnel vision, like, I am here for Alyssa. And if I hope that others, by me doing this for Alyssa, others can benefit from it, right? So, like, tell me about that.
Well, and it is that I think whatever I ask for my child, I think what's really important for me, and I am her best advocate when I fight for what's fair. Yeah, and I think that's really important to fight for what's fair and not fight for more.
Right? Oh, yes, of
um,
course.
and and so I think if I don't do it, who will? Um, and so I think what I've learned with Alyssa is, um, it's been trying to get Alyssa these tools, and as her mother, I go back and forth. Like, am I doing this so that Alyssa presents better to the world? And when she presents better, the world will treat her with more respect, right? So I'm torn with changing her for the world and changing the
Mm-hmm.
world to meet her,
Right,
right?
right.
And
Yes.
so I'm even at 40 something now and learning. And that's what I mean about I'm growing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm just beginning to, like, now that we're a little out of the survival mode, looking into what ableist tendencies do I have? Because growing up the way I grew up, I only know what I can know. But what am I willing to learn? What am I comfortable with in my own child? So Alyssa's pretty darn amazing. But to recognize that, you have to also recognize that just because the world has always operated a certain way doesn't mean it has to be that way, right? And so I'm still learning these things, because there are things like Alyssa, right? I want her to be able to walk so that she can get around in the world easier if she has the potential to walk. I want her to be able to talk. So if she's sad, if she's hurt, um, she can tell me these things, because how sad is it to have these feelings and to know you have these feelings and not have a way to communicate? So
Right.
those things I've pushed for. But as her mother, I sometimes ask myself when she stems,
Mm-hmm.
and she makes, she vocalizes because she's happy or she's sad.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been working really hard to just kind of say, okay, Alyssa, we're going to take deep breaths. Do I do that because I'm afraid of how the world is going to perceive her? Or do I do that because she really does stand to, like, it will make less barriers for her accessing the world? And so, as a mother, when you ask the question about where did I stop changing Alyssa to meet the world and start thinking I need to change the world? Those are the things that now I'm outside of that survival mode,
Mm-hmm.
that I can finally have the bandwidth to start addressing, right? So I don't know the answer to that. I'm still working through that. I want to be
Yeah.
thoughtful because I have the time to think now.
Yeah.
But those are ongoing things that we need to think about, right? As able-bodied people who have probably a lot of ableist tendencies that we're not even aware of.
Right.
Um, so I think that's something that I'm still growing in, that I'm learning. And I'm
Yeah.
trying to cultivate mentors and people around to teach me what I don't know.
Yes. Even as a professional in the field, when I first started over a decade ago, stemming, like, oh, we're going to redirect.
Mhm.
We're going to give them something else to do,
Yes.
right? And now the tides have shifted and we're
Mhm.
trying to cultivate this new where we are perspective where we're like, you know what, we're going to embrace the stemming, right? The
Yeah.
stemming is okay. It's them self-regulating, right? So it's,
Yes.
even as professional, it's nice to see that shift and go, what we used to do is now kind of, the opposite. And yet both are okay,
Right.
at that,
Right.
in that place and time. And so kind of being flexible, to teaching professionals to be flexible, just as
Yeah.
we demand that of our children, you know, of our
Yes.
parents, of ourselves. So you're right. It's such a learning opportunity for all of us. Ja, to for as parents, as professionals, as human beings, as community members, have that flexibility that what you once held so true and dearly to, if it changes, hey, there's a reason why, you know. And if it benefits, especially if it benefits the individuals
Yeah,
at the heart of it, why not, right? As a
right.
field, we
As
have
long
had
as it's
to.
person-centered.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, Joa, I just always am so inspired when I get to chat with you and just hear about all the things that you did. Oh, I just realized I missed a very important question here. Okay. Um, this one, I didn't even go into this with you before, and I know you've always been very vocal, very transparent about all the legal battles that you guys have been through.
Yeah.
For Miss Alyssa, even before the age
Mhm.
of 4, because that's when you guys left
Mhm.
California
Yeah.
for where you're at
Yeah.
now. So, legal issues aside, how did you dig deep to keep going after the system, keep going after the system when you saw that what they were offering your child just wasn't enough? They were like, not saying they were giving you the bare minimum, but you were just like, no, I need more. My child needs
Yeah.
more, and I know there's more,
Right.
and I need you to provide it.
Yeah.
Yeah, like what? Gosh, Mama Bear, oh my gosh, Mama Bear of the century for sure. But like, yeah, what kept you going when all the people that were supposed to be helping you to access all these things for Alyssa were telling you no, turning you down, pushing back? Like, tell me about that journey.
Yeah, well, so we left California when she was 8. So she
Oh, eight,
started
yes.
ABA when she was 4.
Okay.
So we've had so many battles. It was a battle to get her ABA services. It was a battle to get her proper supports in using her communication device. Because let's be honest, a lot of people, amazing speech therapists, have never really taught somebody with IDD and intellectual and developmental disability how to use a communication device, right? There's all these theories, but when you go to someone and say, how many children who right now cannot read yet, um, who do not know their ABCs yet, how many people have been able to successfully teach a child like that how to communicate? I think a lot of them would say zero, that they've ever been put in that situation. And so I think for me, there was a lot of grace. And I recognize that there's compassion and empathy on the other side. They don't know what they don't know either. But
Right.
so for me,
Yes.
I've always said it's not that there's been ever any evil or bad people. It's been people who have held on to this idea that I know it best and I'm the expert.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that our children or our lives can fit in boxes, nice, neat little boxes. And I am a fan of always thinking outside the box because when I was born, I didn't know where the box was, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I've never really colored within any lines. I've never been the type of Hmong girl that was supposed to be quiet and sit back. I couldn't find those boxes. And so I live my life so differently. Um, and I believe in thinking through things. And so whether you have a teacher, an administrator, or a therapist who's been doing something 8 years or 800 years, I don't care how many years they've been doing it. I will take the person who is willing to come together and say, hey, Zoa, let's figure this out. Let's problem solve this. And if they've been a teacher who's been on the job 8 days, I'll take them over the one who's been doing it 800 years.
Yeah.
Because then I know we can think of something better, something bigger, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And I think that it's always been that attitude. When I get to that point, when am forced to file legal action or due process, it's because I've begged, I've pleaded, I've gone there, I've tried to have the conversations, and it feels like when these structures and systems won't be open to having a meaningful conversation, then it's not a choice because I love people to love me. I'm a people pleaser. So it's really hard for me to ever do that. But I do that when I get to the point where I can't look my own daughter in the eyes and know that I've done everything in my power to give her the best chance. I would do the same for her brothers. And the fact that I'm letting my fear keep me from doing that for her, when I can't look at myself or her anymore, is when I finally do it, which sucks, right?
Yeah.
It should never get to that point. But as a Hmong girl who grew up in the culture
Mm-hmm.
of patriarchy as a refugee, I have
Yes.
a lot of my own self issues that I need to get over. And it's a constant battle. But once I've been extremely patient, once I've done so much, then when I go in, I am very comfortable with what I have to do because I've let myself get to that point. So I'm not probably the best advocate because I don't just immediately threaten people right away. I don't like that. I don't even like talking in those terminology. It really scares me, and
Mhm.
it makes me feel uncomfortable. But what do they say? Don't mistake my kindness for weakness,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think that's true in my case. I can be very kind and very supportive and very understanding, but only to a certain point. And if I can't do it for myself, I have to find the courage to do it for my daughter.
Absolutely. Gosh, I one of these days we're going to tap in all of these things. It just I would love to do a workshop because I did I had a chat recently, and what I kept hearing was that, and maybe this is an overgeneralization, right? That a lot of Hmong families, they just happy to receive services, anything we give them. They're just like, okay, they're happy to go along with it. And I'm going,
Mm.
well, they should question what's happening. They should have
Yeah,
questions. They should be invested, And so it's like, how do we teach that, right? How do we let them know they
right.
have rights, that they can contest what's going on? I see that happening more and more. And I think that just kind of informing the parents of their rights is the first thing. But,
Mhm.
again, I go back to, we got to work on awareness. Got to make sure
Yes,
people even know what autism is, what developmental disability is, first of all. And then let's scratch the surface, and then we'll get into
right.
the nitty gritty. And I hope that we will have a long time partner and ally in you, Joa, in the parent advocacy, allying you. And you've been such a role model and inspiration to me, just to go, there's a bright light of someone who has been there, done it, and like you said, you're kind of out of that survivor mode. And but I would say though that you have been thriving, that Alyssa has been thriving due to your advocacy, due to your unrelenting, support and love for her. And when you talk about her, it just inspires me to be a better mom myself. And I'm just
Yeah,
so honored to even be in your presence, to know that more like your home sisters have gone up against the system and changed it for their child. And so thank you so much for doing that for all of us, whether you knew that you were doing that or at all.
oh, thank you, thank you. And the truth is, it's a journey, right? I may have survived certain things, and I'm thriving now, but I also recognize there's so many things I don't know. There are older Hmong sisters and brothers who've gone ahead, and right now I feel like I'm back at ground zero, right? I worked so many years in those early years to get her settled in school, but my research tells me,
Yeah.
my conversations with brothers and sisters tell me there it's going to get more difficult. The
Yes.
next phase is the transition phase.
Mm-hmm.
It's so you to mean you want to da ta la ke che
Mm-hmm.
kan da chi la pi sau la ke la mo ni chop pa chi la su chi mo tu cha ne mo kan da chi mo tu ni mo nya kha te te ke
Mm-hmm.
na ku chang yo she ka sa ke
Yeah.
o ku en te chi chi li ja la pa, right? I
Yes.
see the next hurdle on the horizon. I look at housing issues. Where is she going
Yeah.
to live with me? Where is she going to live without me? And there's so many big issues. And so and in that realm, I'm brand new. I'm still learning. I don't know what I don't know. I still don't know which way is up, which way is down. And I am calling on brothers and sisters who've been here before to help me,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm looking out to people. I'm finding mentors to support me. So that's why I think for me, whatever I can do to support and help, I am more than happy to. And moms email me, text me, big things, little things, just like you do, right?
Uh-huh.
We're all here for each other because we are just on one part of this journey. We are not at the beginning anymore, but we're also not at the end.
Right. Right.
It's a continuum.
Yes. And the journey, like you said, there are ups and downs. There's times when you're like, ooh, I can finally breathe, but then you're like, oh my gosh, there's the next hurdle, right?
Yeah.
And so as long as we can continue to have these conversations to ensure that our Hmong brothers and sisters don't feel alone.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. It already is hard as it is. And if we could just kind of alleviate that by just letting everyone know that you're not alone. There are others, maybe not the same journey, but they're traveling very closely. That's the one takeaway. What is next for Miss Alyssa? 14, boy crazy,
Yeah.
K-pop fan, high school, right? She's in high
You
school?
know, yeah, yeah,
Yes,
she's gonna go to high
okay.
school next year. She's
Okay,
gonna go to high school
yes,
next
that's
year.
next.
And like what I tell her brothers, and I tell her too, is you own you. You are
Mm-hmm.
in charge of you. So I tell John, I said, hey John, you're the boss of you. And I tell Alyssa the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Alyssa, you are the boss of you. So, you know, we will follow her wherever she goes. Right now, she enjoys going and watching all of her friends play adapted sports. You know, there's a different
Yeah.
sport every season. She's doing the whole school thing. Um, Loves music, loves shows. That's where she's at now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we'll follow her and let her take the lead, right?
Yeah.
Because we don't know. I used to think I knew everything she needed and wanted, and now she's this human being who is coming out and telling us her likes. And so I can't really predict that, but I know that she loves people. So whatever it
Mm-hmm.
is, she will continue to be in the community. She will be
Yes.
her. And for us, it's like, how do we evolve and change with her as she changes?
Right.
Um, so I don't know, except that she has a good life and she's happy.
Yeah.
And you know, we're getting ready for that next phase. What does career transition look like for her? We don't know any of these things yet, so we're
Mm-hmm.
just kind of holding our breath and
Yeah.
trying to enjoy and appreciating how far she's come.
Yes. And
You
like you
know.
said, she put in all those hours, all those years, yeah. 40, 50 plus hours. Can you imagine? Even
Hmm.
yo, Bei Blau Chi Hyung, 40 hours,
Right.
that's a full-time job of just
Yeah.
therapy, people in your face all day long, placing demands on you, asking you, and I mean, even as an adult, you probably in 8 hours, you're exhausted, you need time, but a child, so she's put in all the work, and look at her, she's thriving, and it was funny, I'll end with that story you were telling me at the beginning about how now, you guys are going out to support her brothers, right? It's her turn to
Yes.
be the cheerleader and go and watch them for all those years where they were kind of like joining you guys who are to watch her at therapy. So I love that. It's, gosh, for a lack of a better term, how normal is that, right?
Yeah.
How
Well, and she's not
amazingly.
special. She's not special. So she doesn't get to
Yeah.
not go to all their baseball games, and she has to travel to Iowa with me, and
Oh,
she's so
goodness.
annoyed she'll cross her legs and wear her cap and stare at all the cute boys. And I'm like, Alyssa, payback is not fun, but for all your years of when John and Matt sat through all your therapies, this
Mm-hmm.
is you paying them back, and this is what we do as a family. We support each other and we love each other.
Yes.
And so I think Alyssa just has to remember she's not special. No special treatment for her. So,
I love that. Well, Joel, thank you for sharing your
ah,
story. I always love to catch up and just see how things are going. But every time, I'm just so inspired. I'm like, what else am I going to go out there and do in the world to make Joel proud of me? So thank you so much
oh,
for your
please.
time.
Thank you, Tia, for everything you do for our family, for every family that's out there by pulling us together, creating this network, right? And making sure that we have conversations because knowledge and conversations and getting the secrecy out of all this stuff, taking stuff out of the dark is how you empower people. And so I'm so appreciative of you doing that because this is that very first step, so thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
All right. 진리도와.
Okay. Well, Joel, thank you so much for listening to season 1 of Let's Talk About Autism in Hmonglish. I will return in the new year with season 2. If you would like to be a guest on my podcast and share your story, please reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. The links are in the podcast description, and I look forward to hearing from you.